You're watching a kidnapping attempt of a crypto's daughter. Kidnapping of the daughter of a very wealthy crypto dude in there. You're seeing from Fox News some of the live footage going on. Hey, you got to watch out in this world anymore. It's absolutely crazy. Here's an update on the humongous cost overruns. No track built, and we're going to be over, if not close to or over the estimate of what it was supposed to cost for the whole bullet train, high-speed train, train to nowhere, stupid train. Here's the latest from KCRA3 from this morning's report.
This morning, we have an update now on California's embattled high-speed rail project. That's the bullet train that voters approved to go from Los Angeles to San Francisco. But the project, as originally pitched, is nowhere near that point.
So this morning, we're learning the project could need even more money to complete its first segment between Merced and Bakersfield. KCRA3 Capitol correspondent Ashley Zavala is here now with the very latest on this.
Yeah, this is brand new information. At last check, that Merced to Bakersfield line was expected to cost California taxpayers $35.3 billion. But sources tell us project leaders are now warning lawmakers that cost could grow again, now up to $38.5 billion.
The whole stupid train was only supposed to cost that from LA, straight through from LA to San Francisco. Now they haven't laid a piece of track. The track they're laying is temporary track before we get to the new. Oh, Jesus Christ. We in California got to be the dumbest. And you in the state, you in the federal and the other 57 states, as Obama has said, you're paying for it too. Police chase ended in Beaumont on Lambs Canyon about 10 minutes ago. Avoid if you can. Believe that's the one that where the car went 50 feet over the edge and the person perished. Of their car catches fire in a fiery crash in Beaumont, slamming into a tree, 1 dead, 4 hurt in Fontana, I should say. Should read the story. Car plummets 100 feet in down LA's Mulholland Drive. Resident blames racing.
And good morning, I'm Annie Rose Ramos in Palm Springs, where a fertility clinic was bombed.
Well, I wish they would give us the right report on the video. Anyway, fiery crash going on there in Mulholland, street racing, blamed on that. In a very bizarre story, there was a bombing at a fertility clinic in Palm Springs, California. The dude that bombed it said, oh, it's all these people having babies. He's against babies being born. Yeah, I guess he was against himself being born. Wonder how he figures he got on Earth. What a bizarre freaking story. Some saying this may be the worst bombing we've ever had. There's a car supposedly he was in, blown to bits and pieces, blown away. Blew out some of the front of Desert Springs Hospital. This fertility clinic's right across the street, said ABC7 report.
His office is monitoring the situation and will continue to. A law enforcement source telling ABC News they believe that the suspect in this case was killed. We also believe 5 other people were hurt in this explosion, and there across the street is the hospital. And you can see the force of this, shattering windows at nearby businesses. And this is hospital, this is Desert Regional, and on a second floor on the back of a long outdoor second multi-story patio, those windows were shattered as well. People all around Palm Springs said they could feel the concussion.
You know, notice since it's this is not 24/7 across every news outlet. Where's PMSNBC, CNN, ABC National News, or the Eye, or the Peacock? Big old silencio. Why? Because it blowed a fertility clinic out of the water. Holy bleeping cow. No wonder people are turning away from the Mockingbird stupid media, because we all know they're agenda driven to the max. Just like the story on Joe Biden. Joe Biden, they said, has cancer, prostate cancer, advanced prostate cancer. We'll get into this with Dr. Kelly when we come along. Seems to be very advanced. All the stuff he got tested on, nobody knew while he was president. This stuff just happened in the last 3 or 4 months. I don't think so. We'll get more with Dr. Kelly when we come back at 5:30. We join the Mighty Red KMET. 2 killed, a girl, 5 missing after a train hits a family walking on a bridge. Some of the stuff you hear about anymore is absolutely fascinating, of how we ignore common sense. Is just not only taking a vacation, seems to be out to lunch. More of the local news. We'll hit a few of these because we got a ton of them. Body of the missing 22-year-old found in Big Bear Lake. He was missing from a local college. Tanner Prentice, 22-year-old, who was reported missing over the weekend, was found dead in Big Bear Lake. 3 fires in the Banning Beaumont area of that. I don't know, maybe the arsonist route, or maybe it was just bad luck. Who knows? Population dips by 9,000 in 5 years. 500,000 or more homes were added, yet no savings of housing hunters or apartment seekers. Why? Because of stupid California rules and regulations and CEQA and banning this and raising the cost of this. All this stuff affects that. Where's all the cheap labor doing all the construction-wise and how prices coming down? Because we elect stupid freaking people. Some memorial ceremony will be coming up May 26th, next Monday of that. So be sure to join that. There's going to be ceremonies all the way from Claremont to Murrieta. San Jacinto Council meeting has been canceled. So there you go. There's some more of that on the Memorial Day services coming up next Monday of that. So if you're so inclined, especially the big one out at March Air Force Base, or March Air Force Base Cemetery, where they put the flags on all the graves out there. 1962, 35-minute film about someone who got the Medal of Honor. That was Chuck Rodriguez Day, was held December 17th, 1952. There is Chuck. There's that funky slide guitar music that comes in every Monday through Friday. Live at close to 5 on Evil Hippie Network, Rumble, X. Well, X is giving us trouble some more on that. Old Elon needs to work on his X profiles a little bit more, but we'll get into that. All sorts of local news. Man, along the national stuff was going too with the Biden cancer deal. We'll get to that with Dr. Kelly, the bombing in Palm Springs, which was a local story, but should be national. The silence is deafening on that one. And all the other absolutely fascinating things that went on, according to the high-speed rail, is going to I could probably go to Wednesday to get all this stuff in on that. It's been an incredible news weekend. Nothing more in this whole Palm Springs fertility clinic bombing. Absolutely 1000% should have been, if it would have been the other way around, if it would have been a, let's say, a white guy in his 20s that bombed an abortion clinic, they'd already had the dude strung up in the middle of the Palm Springs town square. They would have been beating and lashing him to death, maybe even staked to a cross. This clown bombs a fertility clinic right across from Desert Memorial, the big hospital there in Palm Springs. The only trauma one place down there in that hole until you get up here to like Loma Linda. I think Riverside University may be becoming a trauma one. Then you got, I think, Arrowhead over in Purdue. But anyway, the trauma one, that's a, Desert Hospital down there has been very
The viral 30-second pink salt trick that melts fat was actually
Andres,
featured on the Today Show. But for those who missed it,
this stuff keeps going with this, I don't care about your pink salt crap. It's absolutely 10,000% off the charts. This guy would have been, if my hypothetical guy, the white guy who was, if he would have bombed an abortion clinic, holy Moses, they wouldn't have been off of it today. They would still be breaking news, every detail. This is how CBS News reported it.
Palm Springs this hour. Andres, we see there is still a crime scene behind you this hour. What's the latest on the investigation there?
Well, Chanel, investigators say the explosives were found inside the vehicle of that 25-year-old, a 2010 Ford Fusion. The assistant director of the FBI Los Angeles field office says that this is the largest bombing in recent history here in Southern California. They did release his photograph because they're asking for the public's help. They know that he arrived.
Largest bombing in recent history. If that would have been, again, if that would have been as part of a white dude who bombed an abortion clinic, largest bombing in recent history, there wouldn't, you couldn't have turned the local news, 2, 4, 7, 11, 5, 9, 13, you couldn't have, they'd still be broadcasting it. Let's get more on this.
Here to Palm Springs at 6 a.m. Saturday, but now the explosion itself occurred at 11 a.m. They want to know, what did he do in that time in between? Did he scope out the clinic? Did he put the final touches on the bomb that he ended up detonating? So they're asking businesses and people who live in the area to scour their security cameras to see if they notice anything suspicious, whether...
Oh, this is, what, 2 days later or 1 day later? Two days later. Well, this was yesterday. Oh, will you scour? Oh, if you see something, maybe in a week or two, let us know what's going on. Bill Asaley, our U.S. attorney out here in California, said, hey, we're jumping on this like white on rice. The bizarre tale. This is like Tom Del Beccaro said it with his book, The Divided Era. We're becoming more than that. I mean, up and down the line. It's like, oh, nothing's going on. They're talking about, he drove a white Tesla or whatever. The thing's blown to smithereens. Who cares? Who cares what difference does it make if he was on a moped? All that stuff, what colored clothes he was wearing that are blown to smithereens. More from the CBS 2 report.
At a temporary facility elsewhere.
And I know that police are still trying to gather more information and evidence in the investigation, but do we know more, Andres, about what may have motivated the suspect?
Well,
2 minutes and 30 seconds. Who knows? This is just a clip I found on CBS News. Who knows how long at this point the segment had ran? And maybe only 3.5 minutes is all they ran on this stupid thing. I mean, this is absolutely... Oh, well, we're finally getting to, well, why did this kook blow up the building, the fertility clinic in Palm Springs?
Agents say that the mentality of this 25-year-old was nihilistic, meaning that he didn't think that life mattered and that people should not bring kids into this world.
The suspect was nihilistic. He didn't think people should bring kids into this world. Again, if I switch this around, this is a white guy who bombed an abortion clinic or Planned Parenthood. How dare he tell women, it's my body, my choice. This guy is the personification of Satan, the devil, evil. Oh, it'd have been going again. 2 days today, they'd have just been warming up. We'd be lucky if they dissipate this by the weekend. It's nihilistic. No, the guy was a flippin' fruitcake. How the hell did he expect he got here?
They did find, again, signs that he was planning to live stream the attack, meaning that he wanted an audience, perhaps spread his message beyond this.
Perhaps he wanted an audience to spread the message, so he did a video of what he was going to do. Again, if this was a white dude who bombed an abortion clinic, it'd have been, oh my God, he made a video showing of that he wanted to save human lives. What an evil and mean and nasty person. He's not going to tell me what to do.
Area. He also, FBI says that they don't have any evidence at this point that he belonged to an extremist group, and so they do believe that he acted alone. We did speak with his father, who says that they haven't talked in more than 10 years, but they did notice a difference once he moved out here to the desert too. That
was he 25? He hasn't talked to his parents in 10 years since he was 15? Whoa! Wait a minute. Early teenager, probably a teenager. Before he was 18, he hasn't talked to his parents.
neighborhood out there in 29 Palms. And so it could be that the isolation, his beliefs, this ideology regarding about not parents bringing in kids into this world could have deepened his resentment to those who did want to have families.
Oh, his resentment of people that wanted to have families. What a terrible concept. I mean, again, the stark coverage had the subject matter been twisted 180 degrees, would have been totally different. Now, let me say 29 Palms is out there. Well, it's about, as a crow flies, I'd say about 40 miles north of Palm Springs, but you got to go around Fisher's Fence, as the old saying goes, to get there. So it's about an hour's drive. 29 Palms, Joshua Tree out in that area, very isolated, very rural, very desert, rural. Very few people live out there. It's really a close-knit community. You're basically survival of the fittest out there. So that makes it even more interesting of that. Again, he hasn't talked to his parents since he was 14 or 15. This kid didn't raise any red flags anywhere. I smell a rat in the whole deal. They're trying to, this is a one-off deal. I don't know. It's sometimes beyond the pale that this stuff gets out. Another on NBC News, FBI links fertility clinic bombing to anti-natalist ideology. Attack killed one person Saturday and injured 4 other people. Again, it's like, oh ho hum. We'll figure it out someday. I think. Maybe. Some of the things you see and hear are absolutely incredible. Get to the high-speed rail story, which is going to be continuing. Back when this was proposed in the early 2000s, it was only supposed to cost, if I remember right, around $35, $36, $37 billion. Train from LA to San Francisco, you're supposed to get there in 2 hours. Flights, an hour. You can get on the bird. And see if I can get my cameras working right. There we go. You can get on the bird, and it's an hour. So 2 hours, that ain't bad. It's about a 7-8 hour trip by car. Mind you, that's the estimate when they get done with this thing. It's going to be 7 hours, 3.5 times more. Than it was originally. They haven't even laid a piece of track. I'll have to get the Newsom quote. I think we'll get it tomorrow. Says, well, the track they're laying is temporary track because we got to lay a temporary track before we can lay a permanent track so we can shut up. Just shut up. The cost overruns of this go up by the day. Even you and the other 57 states, as Obama has said, you're paying, I think the feds have kicked in about $4 or $5 billion so far. Trump said, and Kevin Kiley up there in the Congress, congressman from California, been on the show many times, said, no more federal money. We're broke. We've got a $36 trillion deficit. You guys got a $12 billion deficit. This thing's never going to get done. Even if it does get done, you can ride the bus dang near from there to there in that amount of time. I think a bus trip, 12, 13 hours. I think if you go Amtrak's not that much longer, I don't believe, than 8, 9 hours like a car. And that's what the bullet train's going to be. No different than getting on the Amtrak. That's how utterly freaking fouled up we are. More from the KCRA 3 report this morning from the great Ashley Zavala. Here we go.
Battled high-speed rail project. That's the bullet train that voters approved to go from Los Angeles to San Francisco. But the project as originally pitched is nowhere near that point.
So this morning, we're learning the project could need even more money to complete its first segment between Merced and Bakersfield. KCRA 3 Capitol correspondent Ashley Zavala is here now with the very latest on this.
Yeah, this is brand new information. At last check, that Merced to Bakersfield line was expected to cost California taxpayers $35.3 billion. But sources tell us project leaders are now warning lawmakers that cost could grow again, now up to $38.5 billion.
That was about what the stupid thing was originally supposed to cost. Are we absolutely flippin' insane in California?
This also means the project's budget gap could reach up to even more than $10 billion again, just for this Central Valley segment. The High-Speed Rail Authority has confirmed these new figures. Now, the possible funding gap presents even more questions about the project. That Bakersfield to Merced line was expected to be completed between 2030 and 2033, but the project's inspector general earlier this year warned that may no longer be the case. The High-Speed Rail Authority at some point this summer is expected to have a full update on what's going on. But in those
2035? 10 more years? We don't. First it was 2030, then 2035. Now, what is it going to be? 2 weeks from now, we're going to say 2040, and then 2045, and then 2050, and then, well, you know, the truth is, it's going to be the 12th and ever. Mind you, as they have, once that, even if they get from Wasco, which is about 20 miles north of Bakersfield, to Merced, and if you're coming from LA or Inland Empire or Orange County, you got to ride a frickin' bus. Or if you're coming the other way, you got to ride a bus from Wasco to Southern California. Then, depending on which way you're going, either Merced to Frisco or Frisco to Merced, you got to ride another bus. That's why it's going to take 7 hours at a minimum. You can drive it in that time. You can get in your putt-putt, unless it's an electric car, because you'll never make it on the charge. You have to charge it 16 times to get to San Francisco. You're done. And they don't even know when that will be done. It isn't even going to be done 10 years from today. Mind you, it was supposed to start in 2005. 20, 30 years later, it's still not going to be done. As the estimate is today. And they just keep moving the goalposts and goalposts and goalposts.
Documents that we obtained to get this information and that project leaders have confirmed, they note the cost estimate has a range depending on a variety of factors. Those factors include inflation and the rising cost of materials like concrete and copper. The High-Speed Rail Authority is eyeing possible design changes to save money potentially. So State Senator Tony Strickland is the vice chairman of the Senate's Transportation Committee. In a statement, he told us, quote, "The high-speed rail project continues to suffer from self-inflicted wounds, and I am extremely disturbed to learn about this latest information, which further erodes the public's trust, and a project as proposed will never be built." He went on to say, "I urge my colleagues in the Senate for us to have a serious conversation on how we can discontinue this failed project, as our state truly does not have the money to waste, and Californians are sensitive to government waste." I also checked in with Democratic states.
When have they been sensitive to government waste? That never? I mean, holy bleeping cow. You cannot make this stuff up. The waste! This may be the biggest wasteful government project in the history of humankind. Times 10. Times a gazillion.
Senator Dave Cortese, who leads the Transportation Committee there in the Senate. Nothing from him yet, but he was hoping to have a hearing on the high-speed rail in May, and obviously we're halfway through the month, so we'll see.
Right. So we also know the Trump administration is performing an audit, so where does that stand?
That's right. That audit apparently is still underway, and we reached out to the Trump administration for comment about this update. Nothing yet from them. We should note California taxpayers have spent $14 billion on this project so far, and the federal government so far has put about $4 billion up. Next year, the governor plans to put $1 billion toward the project, but it's not clear at all how this possibly $10 billion funding gap will be addressed.
$1 billion next year is a drop in the freaking bucket. This thing, $1 billion? They need another $20 billion in the next 10 years, possibly, to have it close to done. That's $2 billion a freaking year. And of course, the costs are going to skyrocket in the next 20 years. Even if we completely change the government, let's say in the next 4 years, let's roll Utopia. Let's say we can get close to a 50-50 legislature. Let's say maybe in 26 we do elect a Republican, Hilton or Chad Bianco or somebody. I tell you what, if Matt Mahan, the mayor of San Jose, runs, he will take this. I bet you he will take this in a cakewalk. Story for a different day. Don't know if he's going to jump in. But Mahan he's a Democrat, San Jose, but he's been tough on crime and the illegals and the vagrants. So that's, again, story for a different day. It'll be $80 billion to get from Wasco to frickin' Merced if they get it done by 2050, which is about what they're on a pace. Well, there ain't even a pace to get it done by then. Well, why isn't Ashley?
By the legislature, by lawmakers, and even President Donald Trump has said that this is a project he's not interested in funding. So a lot of questions about this bullet train. One other thing I should note is that the LA to San Francisco project was originally pitched to voters to cost $40 billion. This Bakersfield to Merced line is almost reaching that price tag. Wow.
Wow. All right. Ashley Zavala, thank you so much for that.
Hell, I was low. $40 billion. It was originally said $40 billion straight shot, LA to San Francisco, 2 hours, to be done by 2020. We should have been riding this thing for 5 years. Yet we're stuck on a train that goes nowhere. Continuing to go nowhere. For what this thing would cost, every freeway project, every water project, every electricity project we could possibly even dream up or think up could have been done. We could have had nuclear power plants from San Diego to Eureka. We could have had 27,000 reservoirs built. We could have had 100-year storage of water. We could have been drilling. We would be paying about $2 a gallon like they are in Oklahoma for a gallon of gas instead of $5. Roll into the rest of the local news, or my head explodes. And celebrate with us. Grads eat for free. Must have Count and Gap. Check with your local Golden Corral to see if they are participating in that. Hey, if you're a grad, you wear your cap and gown, you might get a freebie. They're at Golden Corral, but don't take my word for it. Check them out. Make sure, because there's all sorts of rules and regs on that. Pacific Coast Highway, an IE man from Ontario died after being struck by 2 cars in Long Beach. Restaurateur, Polly Pie's guy, who played for the great John Wooden, basketball coach of UCLA, Eddie Sheldrake, dies at 98. Well, you can't complain about that, I don't think. Rat Rod Heaven, that's a new thing coming on. Well, not necessarily a new thing. A new old thing. Love that with the old style setup of that 1.5-ton chassis and all. Tribute to the Kellys 44C Gary fire truck floater, gone but not forgotten. Good economic trends in San Bernardino County labor market, up due to healthcare employment. Wages are up, grew for 3.7%. Taxable sales are up 0.05%. Not a good sign. They're down in Riverside County, I believe. Commercial real estate surge, 203%. There must be some big projects. That's from Supervisor Kirk Hagman, which we've had on the show. San Bernardino County. Nathan Hockman says promises to crack down on criminal undocumented immigrants. The fun is over. This is the Los Angeles County District Attorney. On top of that, he's cracking down on crime on retail theft, all this other crap, vagrants, everything else. He ain't putting up with it. It's about time. Good riddance from Gascon. Riverside law enforcement officials in Riverside announced Monday that they have identified 2 juveniles who will face charges in connection with anti-Semitic graffiti of that. In my native area, Edgemont, theft and assaults are being reported up the Kaizu. Thanks to Donovan Sadiq for posting that. 1 dead, 4 injured in a fiery Fontana crash. That's from the Inland Wire. Missing person in Colton, if you've seen her. Her name is Amber Elizabeth Walker Thompson. Heck of a name. If you've seen her, let authorities know. Woody Harrelson and Bill Maher's weed joint got hit in a burglary. Wonder what they took. Oh, man. Devastating fire in Rancho Cucamonga at a residence. Kevin Jeffries, maybe we'll get into this more tomorrow. Lawsuit filed with the U.S. Forest Service wanting to stop firefighting airplanes because of pollution. I don't think Trump has heard about this. Again, a UCB Santa Clara student goes missing. He was found dead in the lake in Big Bear. Tanner Prentice was the name of that individual of that. Ritchie Canyon is going under road construction, so be careful going through there. Watch for the construction workers. We don't have to want to report anything bad or dangerous or anything going on there other than everybody's happy. Rental scam alert posted by Murrieta cops on that. Fool information officer in Moreno Valley at the Safety Expo, posted by Freddie B. I have to dig into that. Who's the fool information officer? Well, that would be appropriate for Moval. Story for another day. Bay Area teenager drowned in Lake Havasu near Copper Canyon Saturday. San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department reported. More stuff going on. Look at all the stuff we got. Oh, free rides for a month on the RTA bus and the driverless bus. How many are going to get on? Some neat artwork from the old days of that by Doug Baker on that. So that's some pretty good stuff from the old days. Pedestrians struck on a bicycle near Arbor Park and Dracia over there again in Moval Edgemont area on that. DUI driver slams into car leaving the LA County Fair, injures 7 passengers. Do not drive drunk. There was a day Tonka toys manufactured in the United States of America. Yes, in Minneapolis, Minnesota. See, mostly ladies in the 40s and 50s and 60s building the Tonka toys in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm going to say that because that looks like a 53 to 56 Ford pickup there that they're putting together. So I would say that picture is from the 50s when we were a manufacturing powerhouse, and 35% of the labor market in the U.S., the private sector labor market, was union-based. Zero, or almost zero. I think there was one in Minnesota or Wisconsin. There was that iconic photo from 1955, Santa Ana drag strip. TV, Tommy Ivo versus Norm Grabowski. Of course, Tommy had his Buick-powered T Roadster, Grabowski and his Caddy-powered T there at Santa Ana drag strip in 1955, thanks to Mike Ferrante of Pharaoh's Car Club, the world-famous Pharaoh's Car Club. The divers made a rescue there in Coachella from the Riverside County Sheriff's dive team. So good job there, guys. Visitation fire in the Santa Ana River by Van Buren in River City. Investigation is ongoing. I wonder who started it. We can only guess. There's the fertility clinic bomber, which we don't want to mention his name because he's a POS. Texas man was killed, and that a resident of Eastville was among 7 killed in a crash involving a tour bus in Yellowstone. There's that ding-a-ling again. What's up here? Southwest Sheriff Station, Temecula kids, canines, and cops. Good job there, Temecula cops, kids, and canine. Parent notification policy may return to Temecula schools. It's about freaking time of that. This is in Moreno Valley Matters by A.J. Singleton. Kid asked if we were going to the circus. And he sees a tent in Moreno Valley. Oh, Moreno Valley is a circus, no doubt. Every day, 24/7, 365. DUI checkpoint in San Jacinto. Netted. So I still say I'm with agreement with Freddie B. Saturation patrols, much more effective than the DUI checkpoints. We're getting close to getting to that. 29, oh, don't know if that was that. A teen was arrested in Tennessee, gamer, after hearing a plot to attack California schools. Then there was that Mexican Navy vessel that hit the Brooklyn Bridge. What the hell is going on?
Got about 30 seconds, Roy.
Holly High, Santiago, and Murrieta High swimmers, high school swimmers, brought home the gold. Good job there. Sometimes when instead of cleaning the house, I watch an episode of Hoarders, and I think my house doesn't look bad. That's what we posted on.
Here we go, 10 seconds.
Here we go. For those who support America, patriotswitch.com.
IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
Live guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday, live at 5:30 on the Mighty Bet 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire in the form of Today and Band. Join a vast studio audience in the Evil FB Network, Rumble. I don't know what's wrong with X, but we're still maybe a world's record on making YouTube. I don't know. We will find out. On that, lots of interesting stuff happening. The bullet train, again, is bleeding cash. The $40 billion estimate that it's cost, no track laid. They figure it's going to cost at least that much, and it isn't even going to be done now till 2035. This is absolutely out of control, ridiculous of what we have going on. It's mind-boggling, all the ridiculous, stupid, idiotic stuff on that. The Palm Springs bomber who hit the fertility clinic, blew it pretty good, blew himself up, hit Desert Hospital down there, and no hue and cry because he's blowing up a fertility clinic. If that would have been reversed, if that had been a white guy blowing up an abortion clinic, we would still be, you couldn't turn on a TV or a radio or your social media and not be hearing about it 24/7, 365. Just shows you how disingenuous most of our media has become on that. The Biden cancer story and everything else. But as we usually do on a Monday, we have, as I've determined her, the premier physician in all the world, supreme expert on COVID-19 and just about everything else, Dr. Kelly Victory. Welcome to IE Newswire with Roy.
Hey, thanks as always for having me, Roy. That explosion was in my neck of the woods, just a little bit down the road, and it is just insanity. The reports are just ridiculous.
Can you believe the hardly no coverage and of that? Oh, well, you know, the poor lad that blew up this, you know, he just didn't want people to have kids. I mean, like, they're almost making a hero out of this guy, Kelly.
Yeah, I mean, the manifesto and the social media post said fundamentally that he thought that people should not be brought into this world without their own consent. Let that sink in. Let's let that sink in. Now, this guy was apparently smart enough to make a bomb, and apparently a pretty big bomb, but he's the same wackadoodle who's posting that people shouldn't be brought into the world without consent. So go figure.
I don't know.
You know.
Well, we got 8 billion people in the world. Now, how many billions of people have been in recorded history have come into this world? Not one has been brought in with their consent. I mean, why would you even write? Nobody saw any red flags. They said in one report he's what, 25? He hasn't talked to his parents in 10 years. This wasn't raising any red flags anywhere between anybody. This guy just popped up out of the blue. This is impossible. If, like I said, if this was reversed, that you would not hear, You couldn't hear. They'd have air raid sirens broadcasting it, Kelly.
No, I agree, and we walk this fine line, Roy, with people's with First Amendment rights and the fact that we don't want to intrude on everybody's right to free speech and those sorts of things. But the reality, and I am a student of disasters. People never quote it just snap kind of thing. It's not true with active shooters. It's not true with bombers. People don't quote just snap. They always have laid a long road of evidence that something is going sideways. And this guy clearly did. So we have got to get better at identifying those people who are likely to follow through on one of the wackadoodle things that they are saying or posting on social media or, whatever they are saying. This goes all the way back to Columbine. Harris and Klebold, the two kids who perpetrated the horrible active shooter, killings of multiple students in Columbine, Colorado. It was clear that these kids were not going well. They had swastikas on their backpacks and, were wearing black fingernail polish and posting all kinds of hateful things, a lot of hateful rhetoric. This was pre-social media days, but they were submitting essays in English class that were very dark and very, maudlin. And we've got to do better as a society at figuring out how to identify those people and then act on it and say, no, somebody's got to intervene on this. There isn't a shooter out there who didn't leave tracks ahead of time, and this bomber certainly did the same.
1,000%. I mean, you cannot, again, the devastation, biggest bombing attack in California or the West Coast since anybody can ever remember. And it's like, they're like practically every media outlet is just blowing this off. The only conclusion I can come to is because they agree with the subject matter of the bomber. Because if this was a white guy who bombed an abortion clinic, holy cow, you couldn't sleep. They would not let anybody rest over this. It's really a de-degradation of society that we become to, Dr. Kelly.
Well, yeah. Well, just think about it this way, Roy. You and I have been preaching from the beginning of the pandemic the importance of informed consent to get a genetic therapy, informed consent to take some experimental drug into your body. This guy wants informed consent for people to be born. Okay,
I can't stop laughing about that.
They were deriding and ridiculing me for suggesting informed consent for an experimental drug. This guy somehow is mainstream because he wants informed consent for people to be born. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. But you're quite right. They aren't covering it. Has gotten very little media attention. It happened in my backyard, so I've been acutely aware of it. But it has gotten very little attention. I just finished a little spot on Newsmax, and they were getting ready to cover it. I don't know how in depth, but this is really all about sort of the who perpetrates the crime. As you said, if it were a white guy doing this to an abortion clinic, it would be all over the news.
Switching gears, the other big story that came out today was Joe Biden diagnosed with aggressive form of prostate cancer. How could I've heard 152 reports, maybe one or two people in the tank. Most medical professionals say he had to have that. He might have even had it while he was vice president, definitely while he was president. Why this wasn't disclosed or diagnosed at this time, or it's coming out now, is, I mean, just another chink in the armor of what's going on. But what's your take on this whole thing, Dr. Kelly?
Well, two plausible explanations. You are right. Prostate cancer clinically is normally one of the slowest growing cancers. It generally takes years from the time of diagnosis to metastasis to the bone. So he now has stage 4 cancer. So one of two things. Either he has an aggressive form of cancer, what we are now calling turbo cancers, as a result of the multiple mRNA injections he took for COVID. And we know that they are causing tremendous harm to the immune system and causing these new, hyper-aggressive cancers that we've never seen before. Or the more likely scenario is that they lied, that they were not forthcoming, they were not transparent about what was actually going on with the former president, that he had this known prostate cancer for some period of years, and now they are disclosing the fact that it is stage 4, likely in an attempt to make him look sympathetic, rather than to allow people to focus on the newfound knowledge by the mainstream media that turns out Joe Biden was actually demented, something that I've been reporting on since early 2020, well before the last election. So I think that the likely scenario is that they lied about it. It is not conceivable to me that a sitting president would not have a PSA done on the annual physical. They aren't always done on, routine Americans after the age of 70, but a sitting president most certainly would have had a PSA done, particularly in light of his previous history of colon cancer and his waning mental acuity. Those things, all of those would have or should have tipped any clinician to do a full workup, including a PSA. So I suspect that they've known for many, many years. And Dr. Jill Biden, although some people say she is, fiercely protective of her husband, I am not quite so magnanimous. I say she's guilty of elder abuse.
Being of the retarded half of the population and more than 2 decades past, being 40 of that, I can tell you, you can, in your 40s and by the time you're 50, you cannot get out of a freaking hospital hardly without getting a PSA test. That's Joe Fred walking in the deal for a hangnail or something. So the thought that this was not disclosed or nobody knew about it, or all of a sudden it just, they discovered he has aggressive prostate cancer. Now of that is just again, this is another chink in the armor of the lie we've been told about Joe Biden. Let's just say from 2020, when he started running for president, got elected, on a stolen election, and I'm going to say it. I don't care who doesn't like it. It was a stolen election. It was put on because of this, because that's the only way they could have got a guy like this elected. And here we are with this. At what point do a majority, maybe we're getting there, I'm seeing signs of it, what point of a majority of Americans, and especially Californians, say, we've had enough, we're going in a different direction, Dr. Kelly?
Well, I think that's exactly how we got to where we are with this last election. People are fed up. Even people who historically, Roy, have voted Democrat, people who have never pulled the lever for a Republican in the past, said, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm done with it. We are not getting, they keep promising. And we saw that quite a bit with the African-American community, who are finally started to wake up and say, they have been using us, taking advantage of us, sort of counting on, assuming that they have our votes, and they have not delivered. They've told us the same things over and over again. So I think people are fed up with it. I hate to say, however, that I think there are some things that are happening in this current administration that are not as transparent as they should be. There are still conflicts of interest going on. There's still too many people in Congress on both sides of the aisle who are taking money from, different lobbyists, including big pharma and big ag and big food. And I think it does impact the way that they vote and what they're willing to do. There's a reason why we are, 3.5 months into this presidency, and we still have not seen the mRNA shots pull off the market, despite what I know people like Bobby Kennedy think about them. Why is that? Why have they not been? And I can tell you it's because of the power of people like Bill Cassidy, and others in the Senate who are pulling the strings because they have a vested financial interest in keeping these things on the market. And I think Americans are getting really, really tired of it.
I hope Californians are getting tired of it too. because switching gears a little bit, but taking that, you see blacks have moved a lot towards Trump, which is true. Hispanics, especially even in greater numbers, have moved to Trump MAGA. Hopefully, maybe we'll see the signs of it in 26 and 28. Hopefully, with the debacle of the high-speed rail thing and the $12 billion budget and the illegal immigrants getting all the health care benefits and all this stuff, maybe Californians will start seeing the light that this stuff is going. Maybe we can start seeing this state turn around, and maybe we won't see bombings at frickin' fertility clinics like we did in Palm Springs Saturday, Dr. Kelly.
Well, I sure hope Californians are starting to wake up because if we don't turn it around in the same way that this last election was really, thank goodness that Trump was elected because it was our last chance. We would have, I think the Republic was sunk had that not happened. In the same way, California probably has one election left. If they don't get, if Newsom isn't out and we don't get somebody running this state who has a lick of common sense and isn't hell-bent on driving the state into total oblivion and bankruptcy, you are going to be, in perpetuity, stepping over bodies and piles of human feces and, hypodermic needles and rats in every city in California. We simply cannot sustain this. We cannot allow ourselves to remain a sanctuary state. We've got to get back to the basics and bring this state back to the bring it back to the golden era. And hopefully Californians will see it. If they bring somebody like a Kamala Harris, puts her into a position of power, then God help us. I don't, the state might as well just cleave itself off of the rest of the continent and float off into the Pacific.
Hope for that big San Andreas earthquake coming on. I'm for it. I'm for it either way. I think the only person, let's say a Chad Bianco or Steve Hilton or somebody else could come in and beat would be Kamala, or the best person to do that. And either way, I'm willing to take that gamble. Either we get somebody in there that could start turning this around, or put Kamala and Harris in. Let's just burn it to the ground and rebuild out of the ashes. But as I said earlier in the show, I don't know if he's going to jump in here, but I will tell you this: if Matt Mahan, the San Jose mayor, jumps in this race, I think he could win this thing in a cakewalk, because he's been tough on the vagrants up there, even getting tougher on the illegals and stuff, and turning San Jose around in that. He's actually the kind of Democrats we used to have in here that were at least halfway had a head on their shoulders. And I think he would be extremely hard to beat. And I think I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to him coming in here, because I think he's got enough. I think he would have enough cachet to really start turning stuff around. Dr. Kelly.
No, I agree with you. I think there are quite a few people who could. I was very pro the idea of Rick Grinnell actually running for governor of the state of California. I think he'd do a remarkable job. He now, I think, is probably enjoying his time as special envoy in this current administration in Washington. But boy, he could do a tremendous amount to fix the state of California. I'm hoping that somebody who's level-headed and reasonable actually throws their hat in the ring. You've just, named a few who I think could do it as well. So time will tell, but let's hope that this next election in California goes the same way as the most recent presidential election went.
You named the other one. I think Grinnell would have the best. I think Matt Mahan or Rick Grinnell would have the best shot of actually winning and carrying the state. And those two, Grinnell probably a little bit more aggressive, because he's pretty Trump MAGA. I would prefer him in there than Mahan, because I think he'd be more aggressive at it. But either one of those two, I think, would have enough cachet walking in there that they could actually turn this state around. And man, if we don't start turning California around, even as good as Trump is doing, and he's talking with Putin, hopefully he gets him to the negotiating table and we stop the stupid wars and all that stuff. Got China coming to the table, talking, let's get out of these stupid trade agreements. Let's start bringing more fairness and equity to the real fairness and equity to international relationships. But if we don't fix the once golden state, it may be all for naught, Dr. Kelly.
No, I agree with you, and that's what I'm saying. We've got to get the right person in there. It certainly would help. It's great to pick up congressional seats. It's great to, change up the Senate seats, all of that. But it really is all about the governorship, from my perspective, Roy. So we've got to get that going, and it won't be long, I don't think, until the campaigns start in earnest here, and we start seeing, who's actually going to bubble up to be the front runner. I would love to see, as I said, a Rick Grinnell sort of make a decision to pull out of his primary role in Washington. And I think, had he been tapped as Secretary of State, I think the likelihood of him coming back to California to run for governor would be unlikely. But given that that did not happen, I think we may have another shot at bringing him back and putting him as a front runner here for the governorship.
I hope so. I mean, I like Chad and Steve Hilton. I just, way I see it, I see a very difficult path to victory, no matter who. I think the only person they could really probably, I think even as psycho chick as Katie Porter is, they probably don't stand a chance. The only one they could possibly beat is Kamala, because she's so super stupid that I think a rock could beat her. Now we got a couple minutes left. Anything else on your radar screen we should know about?
No, I think, obviously I'm watching very closely what's happening at HHS. We've had a few positive things in the past week. Bobby Kennedy has suggested that he and the president support the idea of the CDC stopping the recommendations of the mRNA shots, at least for children and for pregnant women. Obviously, you and I and others would like to see the shots pulled entirely from the market. That has not happened nearly as quickly as I would have liked it to happen. But if we are at least taking baby steps and moving that way, that's an important thing. We have the nomination of a new person for Surgeon General in Casey Means. I was not supportive of that nomination, and I expressed that directly to Secretary Kennedy. I think that she was not the right person. She will not garner the support of the vast majority of physicians, given that she is young. She didn't finish her training. She did not finish her residency. She's never practiced medicine outside of her residency, and those sorts of things. She was very pro-vaccine, and she does not have the gravitas or the experience. She has no experience in public health. And I think that those are things that are critical for a Surgeon General. So it remains to be seen what will actually happen with the confirmation, but I will be watching it very closely.
Thanks for being on, Dr. Kelly. We'll do this again soon.
Sounds great. Thanks, Roy.
Dr. Kelly Victory saying it as only she can. Always love the good doctor rolling in of that. Man, it's really the Joe Biden thing. And we'll get into the fight book, and that was the inside story of the campaign. It was mostly about Joe and Kamala, not too much about Trump and the Trump campaign, other than Susie Wiles was one, and she really was. She organized that campaign compared to the one the 16 campaign and the 20 campaign was run, and really got that got the discipline in there that Trump needed to win in 2024. So, but the dumping on the Bidens and the finger pointing, the Democratic Party is on the run. They're in shambles. Now, not saying that they can't come back and not saying that they won't. But at this point, they're down in the dumps, even to the point where Newsom, if you average the last two polls, is only at a 40% approval rating. He has never been that low. He was barely under 50% during the French Laundry days and just before the recall. And across the board, in California, girls and boys sports and locker rooms. We ran the story that Temecula is bringing back the parental notification idea. Well, duh. How did we get to this point? It's a fascinating study in human behavior. But these things can turn on a dime, and they have. I think soon, in the next couple of months, you'll hear a trade agreement with China from the Trump administration, which is the big deal. That's the 8,000 gazillion pound gorilla. I think Trump had direct talks with Putin today. He basically told them, Putin, get this resolved with Zelensky before this thing gets out of hand. Basically get it done. And Putin is supposed to talk directly with Zelensky to get a ceasefire and an end to the Ukraine-Russian war. It's went on far too long. We've dumped, ridiculous amounts of money into that. Hopefully the investigations will fly on that one and everything else too, because there's no greater sin that we've had than, the trillions nationally, the trillions we've dumped in these other countries. On top of that, the hundreds of billions, if not trillions, just in California that we've blown, the stupid train being the latest. But there's only one way we turn this around, and that's if everybody's got to look in the mirror and say, hey, this is it. We're not putting up with this crap anymore. We're not gonna pussyfoot around anything on and out. We're gonna start doing things as they should be for the benefit of everyone. That's what our government was set up to do. It's what it should be doing. Too many times here lately, it has not been doing that. And that's only our fault because we're the ones that elected these clowns to do this. So it's up to us to elect some people in there that are actually going to set the policies that give everyone a brighter future moving forward. That'll do it for today, as we usually say at this time. Mandatory you're back here in 24 Hours Why. You're the best darn show in the whole wide world. Until then, see ya.
The proceeding was a paid program.
All right, Roy. Hey, I sent you something on YouTube, or on Facebook, I should say, that video of Biden a couple years ago when he actually admits he has cancer.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it's about 30 seconds long. It's not, and he mentions, I have cancer along with, people where he grew up. So, yeah, I thought you'd find that interesting.
Yeah, I definitely are going to be on. I got a lot more to do. It's just you can't get it all in that. But yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff that's been breaking on that today.
Oh yeah. I saw that and listened to that, and of course the mainstream media has called that a gaffe.